Welcome back to State of the FBS. I'm Micah, and today we're going to be wrapping up the Power 4 quarterback rankings with the Big 12. If you want to see rankings for the SEC, Big 10, or ACC, those are all out on the channel already. If you've been watching the videos, enjoying the content, do make sure to subscribe. Maybe drop a like on this video if you enjoy it. I've had a really good time recording these, breaking these quarterbacks down for you guys, and some of you guys that I know in person have come up to me and told you you're appreciating the analysis so far, and got a couple of comments on a couple of videos so far. It's been really encouraging. So we're going to move into the Big 12 now and start at the bottom at number 16 with West Virginia. And all you really need to know about the West Virginia quarterback situation right now is it is still an open competition between 5 different players. And as I record this on a Monday night before week 0, not really where you want to be sitting. Those 5 players are Nico Marshall, Jalen Henderson, Max Brown, Khalil Wilkins, and Scotty Fox Jr. Of those 5, I would expect Marshall to get the start. 2-0 as a starter for West Virginia last year, has appeared in 19 games for the Mountaineers during his time at West Virginia. Threw for 434, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks last year, added 120 and 2 rushing touchdowns in limited action. Also, if you want to see a fun highlight, this dude absolutely bulldozed an Oklahoma State safety. It was Trey Rucker on that play and just ended Rucker's career flat out. This guy's a physical runner, decent throw over the football, will be solid. The second guy in the competition right now is Jalen Henderson, former Fresno State transfer by way of Texas A&M, played a decent bit there in 2023, 715 yards, added 104 yards, I believe. 104 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing on the ground at A&M. Then the other 3 players in the competition are Max Brown, a former Florida and Charlotte transfer, played a decent bit at Charlotte. Khalil Wilkins, a West Virginia commit, who is a redshirt freshman, was a dual-threat quarterback as a recruit, former 3-star, 2-time high school state champion. And then finally, true freshman Scotty Fox Jr., who is a 3-star recruit as well, although was a 4-star with rivals, so did have a little bit of recruit prestige. But they say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I don't know what the saying is. If you have 5 quarterbacks, I can't imagine it's much better. So West Virginia are going to start this one off at number 16. Up to number 15, it's going to be Bear Bachmeier of BYU. Say 6'2", 225 freshman, former 4-star recruit, number 425 in the nation, was previously a Stanford commit, but did transfer out of there during spring ball to BYU. You had the whole Jake Retzloff situation with the Cougars this offseason, and he has left the program. So now with Bachmeier coming in, you're losing a lot at the quarterback position. I don't think he's quite really close to what Retzloff provided you at BYU. Does have a very good release. I like the guy's release pretty quick. Good dual threat option, and he's a really fun threat as a runner with the size that he has, and really came in and separated himself during fall camp. The coaches apparently love this guy. He's really been showing out so far. So I do think he'll be solid at least, but again, big drop off from what you had last year with Jake Retzloff for sure for the Cougars. And even though I think Bear Bachmeier is going to be solid, still have to keep him down at number 15 for now. At number 14, it's another team that's currently in a close QB competition, and that is UCF. Scott Frost back down there in Orlando, and he's got some interesting options at quarterback. Again, as I'm recording this right now on the Monday before week 0, no starter has been named for the Knights. Taven Jackson looks to be the top option right now, 6'4", 212. He's a redshirt junior, former 4-star and top 250 player that committed to Tennessee, stayed there for a year, then transferred out to Indiana. Was the game 1 starter for the Hoosiers in 2023, but really struggled, threw for 914 yards, only 2 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Was eventually benched for Brendan Sorsby, who we'll get to further up the list because he also transferred to a Big 12 team and was benched game 5 of the season. Jackson was for Sorsby against Maryland that year. Did improve a lot in the bit of action you saw in 2024 as Curtis Rourke didn't see all the time for Indiana last season, though in a lot less action, obviously, for Jackson than he saw in 2023, although the processing did look to be improved. Touchdown to interception ratio was way better, through less picks, more touchdowns. You love to see the development. Is he a true starter? I'm not sure. He hasn't really shown that ability so far in his career, but second chance as always now in the transfer portal era. Behind him, or well, not technically yet, but competing with him is Ja'Cory Brown, who played a lot last year for the Knights. Former 4-star commit to Miami, spent 22 and 23 with the Hurricanes. Was the backup to KJ Jefferson last year and was also behind Dylan Rizk for the Knights. but did still see some decent time on the field, had 398 yards, 1 touchdown, did throw 4 interceptions, not great, but did have 4 rushing touchdowns and 401 yards on the ground. So this is the most dynamic running threat of anyone in this quarterback room for UCF. Just he needs to learn to throw it to his own team, I think, is the main point of emphasis for him during fall camp. But like I said, very dynamic threat, very good dual threat athlete. And then the third option is Cam Fancher. He's a 6'2", 200-pound redshirt senior, was a 2-year starter at Marshall in 22 and 23 before transferring to FAU, started for the Owls in 2024, but missed the latter part of the season with a broken clavicle, threw for 1,528 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, added 365 and 3 touchdowns on the ground rushing. There's another guy, I'd like to see him take care of the football a little better. Solid athlete, but not a game-breaker athlete. He is a lefty, so there would be an adjustment for the offensive line if he does end up starting. I would say his main strength is intermediate areas of the field. He's pretty good there, but still, I'd put him third right now on this QB battle, though he has seen a lot of reps in the 4-minute offense and tempo settings for UCF in fall camp to this point. But still, I think none of those guys really move the needle a ton compared to some of the quarterbacks in the Big 12 this season, so UCF's going to stay down at number 14. Up to number 13, it's Oklahoma State with House Haney and Zane Flores competing for the starting job. I personally like Haney a bit more. 6', 206. He's a redshirt freshman. Saw action at TCU last season before transferring to Oklahoma State, but most of that action was in a running quarterback role. Had 15 rushes for 65 yards, and this dude can fly. He was a former track star in high school and ran multiple sub-11 second 100-meter times while in high school. So absolute burner, especially for the quarterback position. Former 4-star fringe top 200 recruit at TCU, and former TCU staffer Doug Meacham is the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma State this year, so there's some familiarity there. Goodness, cannot talk right now, but Haney also has more connections to this Oklahoma State coaching staff. The QB coach for the Cowboys is Kevin Johns, who was the quarterback coach at Duke, which is where Haney initially committed to before flipping to TCU late. Haney is a little bit on the smaller side, but the arm is solid. I wouldn't say it's a necessarily great arm, not a world-beating arm, but it is solid. And when you combine that with his incredible athletic ability, I think he is the leader for me in this battle over Zane Flores. Flores is a redshirt freshman, redshirted in 2023, then got a medical waiver in 2024. Had some issues with his foot, stress fracture, bone fusion type stuff, missed the entire season. Was a 3-star recruit out of the state of Nebraska. Very solid touch, I will say, and he thrives in the quick game. He's very good at just making quick snap decisions, firing it in, really thrives on slants. He's a good slant thrower. I know that's not the most glowing review of a quarterback ever. Well, he can throw slants, but it is a good ability to be able to quickly fire that in, fire it accurately, let your receiver work. He does appear to have a bit of a clutch gene in high school, played very well down the stretch, had over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in a state championship game that his team ended up losing, and was another multi-sport athlete, was a basketball and track and field athlete in high school, although not quite the level of athlete that Haney was in his high school days. So I do think Haney would get the nod if I was the coach down there at Oklahoma State, but either way, again, 2 high upside players with not a ton of experience, but I am going to put that competition at number 13 for right now. At number 12, and this is where we really start to get into defined starters, it's Connor Wegman of Houston. And I feel like this is just a classic case of missed potential up to this point. Wegman's a former 5-star, top 25 recruit in the nation at the time he signed with Texas A&M, has a big arm, should have improvisational ability, and when he has been healthy, he seems to really have a good sense of pocket presence and being able to stand in and fire throws. The problem is he hasn't been healthy, and it's really stunted his development. Has struggled with injuries to his AC joint, has some foot injuries, just can never really stay on the field consistently. So it's a lot of, oh, well, I like the traits and I like the hypothetical ability of this player, but we can't see him on the field long enough to see what happens. Last year at Texas A&M, threw for 819 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 picks, was eventually beat out for the starting job by Marcel Reed after yet another injury that he sustained again late in the year. Multiple injuries for Wegman just over his couple years at A&M, but when he's been in, like I said, he is solid. I wouldn't say he's incredible, really struggle with the speed of the game sometimes. The pocket presence, sometimes it's great pocket presence and sometimes it's obliviousness standing in there, but you never really know sometimes if these guys are going to develop properly. Maybe at Houston, you have a little bit of a chance. You get Tanner Coatsiel, great tight end transfer from Ball State, tore up the MAC last year with the Cardinals and should be a very, very good safety blanket this year for Wegman. But for now, I just haven't seen enough. I don't have confidence that he can stay healthy or develop consistently, so he's at number 12. Moving up to number 11, talking about inconsistent development. How about Jalen Daniels of Kansas? 6'2", 220. He's a redshirt junior in 2024, threw for 2,454 yards, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, then had 447 yards and 6 touchdowns rushing. This guy at the end of 2022 looked like he was primed for an incredible breakout, then proceeded to miss most of 2023 with a back injury, was playing fairly well before that. And then you get to 2024 and the production just sheerly by the numbers was fairly similar, but the turnover percentage just skyrocketed. Started just launching picks, wasn't being as calm in the pocket, seemed to really be rushed, trying to make too much happen. And I get there wasn't as much around him at Kansas. You still had Neal in the backfield with him, but you can't do everything by yourself if you're Jalen Daniels. And it feels like he knows that he has to if he wants to get Kansas really on more of a national stage and win more of these games in the Big 12. Just at the end of the day, you have to take what's there sometimes. And if hero ball works out, it's great. But if it doesn't, that's where those 12 interceptions come from. I still like the upside of Jalen Daniels a lot. I'd like to see him settle in, really become more of a quarterback than just an athlete, which I know he has the ability to do when he relaxes and lets the game come to him. I'm just not sure how confident I am in his ability to do that. So for now, I am going to have to keep him down at number 11. At number 10 is Noah Fifita of Arizona, and this guy, if this was QB rankings post 2023, he would have been right near the top of the Big 12. The problem was he has fallen off hard. Last year, threw for 2,958 yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. When you contrast that with his 2023, threw for 2,869 yards, so slightly less yards, but had 25 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, so half the interception total and 7 more touchdowns for Fifita in 2023. And you were just kind of wondering, where did that player go? Didn't look as on time, was not as on target. The running ability has never been exceptional, but I feel like it even got worse last season. And now losing Tetairoa McMillan to the draft, how good is Fifita going to be able to be with Arizona? It feels like a lot of his ability left with Jed Fish. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator, and Seth Doege was the 2024 Marshall offensive coordinator, and Marshall had the 115th best passing offense in the country. So, excuse me if I'm not overly confident in his ability to turn things around for Fifita. Again, just the ability to read and process felt like it went backwards. In 2023, it looked great. He looked much more pro-ready in 2023 than 2024. And like I said, with the new offensive coordinator coming in and losing Ted McMillan, I'm just not sure that you're going to be able to find that version of Fifita from 2023. And he also doesn't have great size. He's only 5'10", 195 is the redshirt junior, and I just don't know that that's going to be enough to get it done if you don't have a big outside threat like McMillan. And with that short frame, too, is he even going to be able to make reads effectively? I don't know. We'll see what he can do, but for right now, I have to keep him down at number 10, and I really even struggled putting him ahead of Jalen Daniels for Kansas for this. The potential that he showed in 2023 was enough to keep him up there, but he is down at 10 heading into 2025. Moving up to number 9, it's Devin Dampier, Utah quarterback this year by way of New Mexico State. He's 5'11", 204. He is a junior, and this guy is a highlight play waiting to happen, whether it's for him or for the defense. In 2024, New Mexico State threw for 2,768 yards, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks, and then added 1,166 yards and 19 touchdowns on the ground. So the touchdown count was absolutely out of control for this guy on the ground. One of the better running quarterbacks in the nation, was 4th in the country in rushing yards by quarterbacks, and just deadly. Absolutely deadly as a runner, incredibly elusive, super hard to catch, even harder to bring down. This guy is just an unbelievable threat in the quarterback run game. And he's joining his New Mexico State offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, at Utah this year. So it's not like he's going to have to learn a new system, which I think will really benefit him. It's going to make the transition in competition much easier moving to the Power 4 and the Big 12. As a passer, he's up and down. When he's on, he's fairly accurate, doesn't have one of the best arms, but is enough to drive it into windows when he has to. I think he has solid upside as a passer. He's probably better than you would expect when you look at the numbers, but still, this guy is not some quarterback that's going to just sit in the pocket and pick you apart. He really wants to be on the move, extending, making things happen on the run, and that's when he's at his best, when he can get on the move. I think the upside of this guy is incredibly high. If he can become a little bit more of a quarterback as opposed to just an athlete, I think the sky's the limit for him. But as for right now, I haven't seen enough of his ability throwing the ball, so he is going to have to stay at number 9. And that's not to say he's bad either. Just as we move up the list, the Big 12 is very deep at quarterback this season. There's a lot of solid quarterbacks in this Big 12. So moving up to number 8 with one of those players, it's Caden Salter of Colorado. Liberty transfer, he's 6'1", 190, is a senior. 2024 Liberty threw for 1,886 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 picks, rushed for 587 and 7 touchdowns. Bit of a step back from what you saw in 2023, where he threw for 2,876 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 6 picks, added 1,089 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground as well. So when he's at his best, this is another guy who can kill you with his legs. I think if you get 2023 Caden Salter and that guy can develop at Colorado, he has the potential to be one of the top 15 quarterbacks, not just in this conference, because that wouldn't be that impressive because there's only 16 teams, but one of the top 15 guys in the country. And the fact that he's at 8 on this list with that kind of potential, like I said, Big 12 incredibly deep at quarterback this year. I'm just worried that obviously there's no Travis Hunter this year. The offensive line is much improved. You get Jordan Seaton as opposed to whoever was doing that at Liberty. Not the strongest group in the world for the Flames on the offensive line, and didn't have a ton of talent around him. So maybe that's a big part of the regression, and he jumps back into it with Power 4 talent at Colorado. I'm a little bit nervous about a guy who took a big step back and then is taking a big step up in competition, going from the worst conference in college football in CUSA to one of the top 4, and you can make an argument for the 3rd best conference in college football with the Big 12, especially with the amount of talent in it this season. There is going to be pressure behind him, though, which I think is going to motivate him. If he starts to struggle, those Colorado fans are going to want Juju Lewis in the game. So I think that Salter is going to be heavily motivated. Deion Sanders apparently loves this guy, has been really impressed with him in camp. Like I said, it's going to be a big adjustment to the Big 12, and this is another guy who I'd like to see go a little bit more towards being a quarterback than an athlete. That's what he was very good at in 2023, striking that balance really well. Last season felt like kind of trying to do too much, and the progression declined as a result. But still, I think there's a ton of potential for Salter. Going to keep him at number 8 right now. At number 7, it's Avery Johnson of Kansas State. And this is another guy who the potential is through the roof. Just need to be more consistent. In 2024, threw for 2,712 yards, 25 touchdowns. Another guy with double-digit picks at 10. Added 605 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. He's 6'3", 196, so pretty solid size for the junior. And like I said, one of the highest ceilings of anyone in this conference. Needs to make less mistakes, tries to play way too much hero ball out there, and it ended up being almost a solo loss by Avery Johnson to both BYU and Houston for Kansas State. Gave both of those games away, did the sophomore last season. Really needs to work on throwing with anticipation and not being reactionary in the pocket. I would love to see him get to read defenses pre-snap a little better. It feels like he's just reacting rather than trying to key in on what the defense is showing pre-snap, and he's just trying to figure it out as he goes along. And he ends up running, I think, more than he should have to a lot of the time because of that. Sometimes the better play is to make a throw when there's open guys, and sometimes he's missing those guys and taking off too early because he can't read the defense at time, gets a little panicked. But if he can really hone in, again, check off the bingo card. If he can be more of a quarterback rather than just an athlete, Avery Johnson is going to be absolutely incredible. One of the most dynamic athletes, I think, in the conference, right up there at the top, and the arm is a plus. It's not a bad arm for Avery Johnson at all. Going into last year was one of the more hyped up players in college football, probably. Didn't really live up to that, but I think could be in for a big step up this season is the Kansas State quarterback. So going to have him at number 7. Up at number 6, it's Brendan Sorsby of Cincinnati. Mentioned him earlier as the guy who displaced Taven Jackson at Indiana. Sorsby has hit the portal as well and found his way to Cincinnati. 6'3", 235. He's a redshirt junior. Last year for the Bearcats, threw for 2,813 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. Added 447 and 9 touchdowns on the ground. So another guy who has great dual threat ability. And this is a very solid, accurate passer. One of the better just pure throwers of the football in the conference, has a great arm. The throws just look effortless for him. It's like he's just doing a little flick of the wrist and the ball floats down the field, or doesn't float, it zips down the field and finds whatever window he needs it to find. Fun stat about Brendan Sorsby from last year: was the only quarterback in the country to record both a 425-yard passing game and a 125-yard rushing game. Did the 425 versus Texas Tech, or at Texas Tech, excuse me, and then at Iowa State rushed for over 125. This guy is very dynamic, has an NFL arm. The arm is NFL ready. It's just going to be a little more consistent down to down, and there's not much around him at Cincinnati. Does not have the talent that a lot of these other teams have. I'm worried about that with him, especially you look some of these supporting cast for these teams at the top of the list, like Sam Levitt with Jordan Tyson, and some of these other big receivers, Micah Hudson for Baron Morton on this list. So not really any of that at Cincinnati. So it's going to be Sorsby trying to do it all himself. Not always the best situation for a quarterback, but does have one of the better arms in the conference, can be a dynamic dual threat. And I think when he's at his best, he elevates the Cincinnati team and might be able to drag them to more wins than they probably would deserve. So he's going to be at number 6 for me right now. Number 5 is Baron Morton of Texas Tech. Redshirt senior, comes in at 6'2", 210. In 2024, threw for 3,335 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 picks. This guy has improved every single year he's been a starter at Texas Tech. The yards have gone up every year, the touchdowns have gone up every year, and the interception rate has declined every year. Did the same amount of picks in 23 and 24, but did it on more passing attempts in 24, hence the rate going down. Former fringe top 100 recruit in the nation when he came to Texas Tech. At the time was the program's highest ever signee at quarterback. And did play injured for most of last season and a half. Has played with an AC joint injury that has been surgically repaired over the offseason. So we might see him take a big jump this year. And he's already improved year over year every single season with the Red Raiders. So if you add in now he finally has a functioning shoulder for the first time in a year and a half, who knows what this guy can do. And you did lose your top receiver from last season, but you are getting Micah Wilson hopefully healthy this year instead of banged up for most of the year. And then Caleb Douglas is also back, your second leading receiver from last season. And Texas Tech, we know they've been throwing this money around. They're going crazy on the recruiting trail. They got the oil rigs out in front of the stadium. They're not messing around right now. And if you want your college football playoff window to start opening, I think this is one of the better seasons to start to do that with a very experienced Baron Morton at the head of this Texas Tech team. I would say I don't want to say a budget Josh Hoover because that sounds mean, but a lot of similar characteristics between the two players, very similar play styles. They're not really either going to light the field on fire with their running game, but they can get out and pick up a couple yards if they have to, maybe make a move in the red zone with it. So ability to run, but not looking to run first by any means. Not a dynamic athlete like some of the other guys on this list. I will say Texas Tech did take a huge blow with Quentin Joyner, the USC transfer, being out for the season at running back. He already lost Taj Brooks to the draft this past offseason. So Morton's going to have to do a lot because there's not a lot of help in the run game compared to what you have with Taj Brooks in 2024. But I still think he's a very, very solid quarterback, very accurate, very consistent, and so he does get the number 5 spot for me on this list. Moving up to number 4, it's Rocco Becht of Iowa State, and this about 3 through 6 on this list was incredibly hard for me to rank. I feel like they're all incredibly good quarterbacks. I mentioned the depth of the Big 12. There are so many good quarterbacks in this conference, especially. I think it might be the second strongest conference in terms of quarterback depth. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I would say it's probably SEC at the top. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the SEC this year, some dynamic threats. When you have a guy like Marcel Reed at number 7 on the list, it's a pretty impressive list. But the Big 12, too. When you have a guy like Avery Johnson, number 7, they're pretty impressive too. Anyways, back to Rocco Becht here. 6'1", 210. He is a redshirt junior. Last year, threw for 3,505 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Added 318 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. And all you need to know about this guy is he's a Pop-Tarts Bowl MVP. So moving on to number 3. No, just kidding. We're gonna give you a bit more than that. He has a very good ability to throw with anticipation and can absolutely zip the football over the middle. I love this guy's arm strength. He's one of these guys that can just create windows with his arm. It's like I talked about with Fernando Mendoza in the Big Ten video. While not quite to that extent, he does have some great ability over the middle, does Rocco Becht. Really developed as a rusher last season, like I said, with 318 yards and the 8 touchdowns, both big jumps from his previous career highs, and trailed only Garrett Green and Avery Johnson in QB rushes for first downs among Big 12 quarterbacks last season. This is going to be his 3rd year starting for Iowa State, so very familiar with the system. I think primed to take another big jump this season. Was great in 2024, very consistent. And even though he isn't the biggest quarterback, he plays incredibly tough. He's really willing to put his body on the line to get that first down or to get a touchdown, to make that game-saving play. I remember watching him play versus Texas Tech last season. That was one of the most entertaining games of 2024, was that Iowa State-Texas Tech game. Super fun game. I would like to see a few less interceptions from Becht in 2025. 9 is not awful. I think you really start to be concerned once you hit double digits, but your elite quarterbacks, that number is closer to 4 or 5, sometimes even lower on the season for the really top flight guys. So I would just love to see less mistakes from Becht. If he can get that nailed down, he's going to be amazing. And I absolutely love this guy. I hate to put him as low as 4, but the 3 guys ahead of him, I think, are even better. Although I would say it's close between, like I said, 3 through 6. Those guys, you could almost convince me to move some around, although I am happy with where I ended up sticking them on this list, and Becht occupies the 4 slot for right now. Number 3 is Sawyer Robertson of Baylor. 6'4", 220, looks great in shorts probably, the stereotypical quarterback size, great size for Sawyer Robertson. Redshirt senior, last year threw for 3,071 yards, 28 touchdowns, 8 picks, added 230 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. This guy took the job from DeQuan Finn after Finn got injured. Finn was like, okay, I'm going to come back and take the starting job. And Sawyer Robertson said, sit back down on that bench. I got this. Baylor started the season 2-4 last year, and Robertson took them on a 6-game winning streak to end the year. They did lose in the bowl game, but up until then was on fire down the stretch for the Baylor Bears. Is a big reason why they're a dark horse college football playoff candidate for a lot of people this year. Dawson Pendergrass suffering a season-ending injury is tough. It's going to be pretty much all Bryson Washington in the run game for the Bears, so if he doesn't have as much help behind him, Robertson might be asked to do a bit more, but I think he has the ability to do that. He's very good at making things happen on the run. He's not this elite athlete like an Avery Johnson or a Caden Salter or a Devin Dampier, but he has the ability to get out of the pocket and get the yards that he needs when he needs to get the yards. His arm isn't super elite either, but he is just deadly accurate. I would say pure accuracy of anyone in the Big 12, probably second right now, but still very, very talented quarterback. Accuracy is very important, as they say at the quarterback position. Very, very key to playing the position. And down the stretch last season, I mentioned the 6-game winning streak, but even including the bowl game loss, his last 4 games of the season, he averaged 322 yards per game, threw for 445 versus LSU in the bowl game, even though that was the game they lost, threw 11 touchdowns, and did throw 4 picks, but 3 of them were versus Houston. So outside of that, only had the 1 interception across the final 4 games. I think he was just incredible down the stretch, and if you can build on that heading into this year, I think it's going to be incredible for Robertson. You have a great test in week 1 on Friday night versus an Auburn defensive line led by a probable top 10 pick in Keldrick Falk, maybe top 15. But that Auburn defensive line is going to be screaming after him. So if he can hang in there versus that defensive line, make those throws, pick up a big week 1 win at home in Waco, I think that'll be a lot, or that'll do a lot for him to really propel him into this season as the starter for the Baylor Bears. But I do have him at number 3. Still love a lot about Sawyer Robertson right now. Looking to see if he can take that next step, though. At number 2 is Josh Hoover of TCU. If you just want a guy that's going to stand in the pocket and pick the defense apart to death, Josh Hoover. He is the most accurate quarterback in this conference. Threw for 3,949 yards last season, 27 touchdowns, 11 picks is not the best. Did add 4 rushing touchdowns, and I believe negative rushing yards. If not negative rushing yards, it was close because with college they track sacks, which I still think is kind of dumb. But redshirt junior. The arm is a plus, and like I said, absolute surgeon from the pocket. Will pick your defense apart and leave absolutely nothing left. Best pure passer of anyone in the Big 12. He can throw with anticipation very well. What I think also does that the best of anyone in this conference. Ability to throw with anticipation and make things happen. Can get on the run and scramble for first downs if he needs to, although not an elite athlete. I mentioned Baron Morton's kind of a slightly downgraded version of Josh Hoover. That's not a bad thing in any way. Josh Hoover would be the starting quarterback on probably about all but 10 teams in college football this season. He is just a dog out there. One of the best quarterbacks in the country. Absolutely love him. I think he's going to be great for the Horned Frogs this season. So you might ask, if I love Josh Hoover so much and I think he's so incredible, why is he at number 2? Well, did throw 11 picks last season. I would like to see that number come down. And if he can do that, just settle in, be a little bit more careful sometimes. I know he really likes to get up there over 40 attempts per game, really be a gunslinger. But if he can kind of just back down the interception total a little bit, I think he might step into being one of the even top 5 quarterbacks in the country this season. But at number 1, I have a guy who I think is close on the accuracy and just offers way more as a runner, as a dynamic threat, and that's Arizona State's Sam Leavitt. Led the Sun Devils to the college football playoff last season, where they almost beat Texas to advance to a semifinal game. He's 6'2", 205, redshirt sophomore. Last season threw for 2,885 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, added 443 and 5 touchdowns on the ground, and he gets Jordan Tyson back. Jordan Tyson is healthy and ready to go for the season, and Jeremiah Smith is the clear number 1 in college football, not even close as far as the receiver position goes, but Jordan Tyson might be number 2, and I know that's going to make a lot of Alabama fans mad who say, but my Ryan Williams. Go turn on the Jordan Tyson tape. They're closer than you might think. I think I would still give Williams maybe the edge. I don't even know. It might be Jordan Tyson. I absolutely love this kid. I think he's an incredible receiver. I'm sad the national stage didn't get to see more of him last year because he got injured down the stretch. He is just an absolute dog on the outside. And for Sam Leavitt to have a guy like that, you can just say, he's down there somewhere. Just toss it to him. Jordan Tyson will make a play. And then you add that to the Kenny Dillingham QB development machine. Look at what he did with Bo Nix. Look at what he did with Jordan Travis. Kenny Dillingham is a master at developing these quarterbacks, and Sam Leavitt was already so good last year. And you saw it happen through the season. At the start of last year, really was relying on a lot more on his legs, trying to make things happen on the run. As the season progressed, got a lot more comfortable just gripping it and ripping it and making those throws from the pocket, throwing on the run, being able to extend plays even more and make things happen outside of the pocket. This dude is just incredible, and he went nuclear down the stretch the last 7 games of the season. It felt like he couldn't be stopped. And then even when Jordan Tyson got hurt, he kept playing at that high of a level. So you get Tyson back, the Kenny Dillingham QB development machine keeps working on Sam Leavitt. I think Leavitt's going to be a monster this season. So he is going to take the number 1 spot for the Big 12 quarterback rankings. Arizona State gets a player at the top of position rankings, I think, for probably a while, because I don't think anyone would have had Cam Skattebo as the number 1 running back in the Big 12 at the start of last season, though he definitely won the hearts and minds of a lot of college football fans down the stretch. But that is it for the Big 12 quarterback rankings video and the Power 4 quarterback rankings for this season. Let me know what you guys thought of this ranking. If you have a Big 12 team as your favorite, let me know where your favorite team's quarterback placed on the list. If you want to hear my top 25 for the season and my college football playoff predictions, that's going to be coming out later this week before week 0, so keep an eye on the channel. Do like, do subscribe if you enjoyed the videos so far. Excited to get more content coming out as we get into college football season, but for now, I've been Micah. This has been State of the FBS.